Hello, my name is Clint Macro, NRA training counselor, advanced pistol instructor, practical pistol coach, and the founder of the Trigger Pressers Union. Today I'd like to talk about using real firearms in a classroom environment for the purpose of demonstration. Whenever we use real firearms in a classroom, it's very important that we purge the room of ammunition. Of course, this is an NRA policy that there be no ammunition allowed into the classroom environment. Now, when we use firearms in the classroom, we must demonstrate the proper procedure when picking that firearm up, when clearing that firearm. We're going to verify that it's clear, and we're going to observe the 3 rules for gun-safe handling. In order to do that, we need to designate a safe direction in our classroom. Now here I have a very small classroom. My safe direction is over here, this direction here, and I have certain markers on the wall that stipulate where the safe direction ends and begins. I have fail-safes in place that make that the safest direction available to me, and that's the safe direction I observe when demonstrating with firearms, and then when I have my instructor candidates in turn demonstrate with the firearms in the teachbacks when I'm doing instructor training. Our safe direction must be identified in order for us to be able to use our 3 rules for safe gun handling, which are: always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction, always keep your finger off of the trigger till ready to shoot, and always keep the gun unloaded until ready to use. Now, of course, we have the discussions on what they mean, and it's important that we talk about the safety rules, what they mean in our classroom, what they mean on the range, but also what they mean practically. Now, whenever an instructor picks up a firearm and uses it in the classroom, well, first and foremost, we need to be safe, observing our safe direction in our NRA rules for safe handling, but also we need to be confident. One of the reasons the NRA likes to use real firearms in their classrooms is so that A, people get their hands on real steel, on polymer, on wood, so they can feel the heft and get a real feel for what the guns feel like. But also, we want to kind of desensitize folks to the fact that, when used with the proper respect and when used safely, these firearms are objects, they're hammers. They're not going to hurt anyone unless they're used incorrectly or with malicious intent. So it's important that we as instructors are confident using these firearms when we demonstrate. Now, part of that is that we're confident and we're aware of our own classroom geography. We set up our classroom in such a way that maximizes our safe direction so that we can do demonstrations while still maintaining that safe direction. But we also need to be fluid and proficient when doing the demonstrations and not get too complicated. If we're showing basically how the firearm works and we're just pointing out the different parts to go over nomenclature with the particular firearm, there's no reason to get into a master grip or get into the fundamentals of firing a shot, because we don't need to get there yet. We're not at that point in our objective-based format class. When we pick up a firearm, we're going to grab it by the barrel or behind the muzzle, and then we're going to take hold of the firearm with our strong hand. This precludes us from reaching down and sticking our finger into the trigger guard and touching triggers. Of course, guns are built very ergonomically correct in regards to us being able to actuate that trigger, and that's a learned trait to be able to pick up or use the firearm while maintaining our finger off of the trigger. That's something that we have to learn. Now, as soon as we pick the firearm up, then we need to visually and physically inspect the chamber and magazine area to make sure that there's no ammo present. Obviously, if the slide is closed on a semi-automatic, if there's a magazine in the firearm, we're going to have to remove that ammunition source first, cycle the slide, lock it open to expose that chamber and magazine area. Now, with our single-action revolver here, of course, there is no magazine to remove, and there's no way to do that without opening our loading gate, and then we're going to have to individually go through and check each individual chamber within that cylinder. Most people won't know how many chambers there are in a particular single-action revolver. You might have 5, most have 6. I do know of some that have up to 9 with .22 long rifle. I'm not going to assume that I know that when I pick up any firearm. So my recommendation to my students and my instructor candidates, and my recommendation to you, is to go ahead and click through it 13 times for 13 colonies. Those of you that have been in an Appleseed project might appreciate that reference. We want to go through it more than once just to be sure that we didn't miss anything, because if we click through it 5 times and there's 6 chambers in there, there's a possibility we might miss a chamber. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 clicks for 13 colonies. Now, of course, after I do my verification and my check as the instructor or coach, then I would go to a student and then have them do a secondary verification. You know, we could perhaps have another instructor do that, but it's best that we have the students do that and get their fingers in there and get tactile interface with the firearm, because that's all part of TPI, and that's what we're trying to do, get our students involved in the training process. Of course, with the semi-automatic, and for the purpose of demonstration, I'm just going to put this back in what could be a loaded condition. I would pick the firearm up, I would get a hold of the firearm, I would remove the ammunition source, I would cycle the action rearward, exposing the chamber magazine area. I'd make a visual and physical inspection of the chamber and magazine area, then I would take it to my student, any of my students, whichever one. It's good to mix it up, don't pick on the same guy all the time, and have them do that verification. Now, if you use your safe direction properly and you have your room set up with that in mind, you should be able to go all the way around the room and still be able to maintain a safe direction while not flagging yourself or muzzling your students. Of course, that would be a huge, huge no-no. It's important that we are very fluid and confident when we demonstrate with the firearms. This helps reinforce good behavior, but it also instills trust with your students. They'll see you as the expert that they believe you to be, and you'll reinforce that by being able to use the firearms very confidently. In the NRA Basic Pistol course, the first time that we do a demonstration, we're not worried about grip, we're not worried about stance, we're not worried about the fundamentals of firing a shot. We're just showing them, hey, we can handle a firearm, maintain our rules for safe gun handling, and then we're showing them how the gun works, basically. We're going over the parts and the components. Now, we as instructors are generally shooters too. We as shooters will, as soon as we grab a gun, man, we get right in there, master grip, and we're ready to go. And that sometimes plays as a disadvantage in a classroom environment. We don't need master grip to show the different components of the firearm, nor do we need master grip to show how the firearm operates, how the slide operates, how the magazine release operates, so on and so forth. We also need to make sure that our students can pass the firearm safely to one another. And just like we teach in the range safety officers course, if I have this gun with my strong hand and I'm going to pass it to someone else, I can take it with my weak hand or my support hand, and I can take control of it that way, exposing the grip, and I can have the other student or the other instructor or whoever come over, they grab hold of it with their strong hand, finger off the trigger, and we communicate. Do you have it? Yeah, I have it. And then I can take my hand off and I can step away from the gun. And of course, the person that's taking possession of the gun would then need to go ahead and visually and physically inspect the chamber, magazine area, make sure no ammunition is present while observing our 3 rules for gun safe handling. Confidence is key. The instructor must be confident, must be slow, must be smooth when demonstrating the firearm. Now let's talk long guns. We were talking about pistols just a minute ago, but let's talk long guns. Say for instance an NRA basic rifle course. You're probably going to come across people using the good old black rifle, the AR-15, one of my personal favorites. Now I know a lot of people that don't have exposure to the AR or a lot of trigger time, they have a hard time locking open the bolt. So I'd like to demonstrate that real quickly here. Now of course, when using this in the classroom, we're going to observe our safe directions just as we have with the pistol. Of course, keeping my hand clear of the trigger, I'm going to take control of the firearm and keep my finger off of the trigger, up high on the receiver. I'm going to visually and with my hands very clear of that bolt release, physically inspect the chamber magazine area, make sure no ammunition is present. And of course, I would do the same thing with my students to do a secondary verification. Now with this gun, I would definitely stay clear of my bolt release right here. And for those of you that may or may not know, the bolt catch and the bolt release are on the same piece of metal, and it has a pin through the center. It works like a seesaw. So if I press on the top of it, the bolt will release. If I press on the bottom of it as I pull the bolt back, it will catch the bolt. Now the way I teach it in the classroom is very efficient, and this is the way I recommend doing it in the classroom. Now there are other techniques, more tactical, practical ways to do this where we're not breaking our master grip, and that would be certainly a different application. But in the classroom we want to be smooth, confident, and safe with the firearm. So let me go ahead and I'm going to send the bolt forward. I'm going to put a magazine in, and we'll put this firearm in what could be considered as a loaded condition, even though we know that it's not right now this second. I'm going to get my master grip with my finger off of the trigger, and of course ergonomically my hand or my trigger finger is right near the magazine release. So I remove the ammunition source, and if you have trouble holding the gun up, or your students do, you can put it under your armpit to give it some more stability. Keeping your finger up on the receiver is going to give you some more leverage as well. So we're going to remove that ammunition source, take that magazine out. While pressing down on the bolt catch with my thumb, I'm going to pull the charging handle rearward, locking the bolt open. Make sure you close that charging handle. And then you'll see that the bolt is locked open. So now we can visually and physically inspect the chamber magazine area. Make sure that no ammunition is present. Now let's say you're left-handed. Well, left-handed, very simply, now we can do the same thing, but we can actuate the bolt catch with our trigger finger. So I'll go ahead and close the bolt. The bolt is closed. We'll go ahead and put a magazine in it and pretend that it's in a loaded condition. Now, if you have trouble holding the gun up, we're keeping our finger off of the trigger. If you have trouble holding the gun up, put it under your armpit. So now I can reach over here in that cradle grasp, and I can grab the magazine release with my thumb. Remove the ammunition source. Now, with my trigger finger, I'm pushing on the bottom of the bolt catch as I pull back in the charging handle, and then I close the charging handle. Now this exposes the firearm to where I can visually and physically inspect the chamber and magazine area, and then I can come over and have someone do a secondary verification. So left-handed, right-handed, it can certainly be done even with a limited safe direction in your classroom environment. So with that said, don't be afraid to use real firearms in your classroom. It's important. It's important that people get their hands on real steel, on polymer and wood. It's important that people see you as the instructor using the firearm in the classroom for demonstration purposes, using it in a very confident way while maintaining your safe direction, while exercising the NRA rules for safe gun handling. My name is Clint Macro. We'll see you next time here at the Trigger Pressers Union.